as we get started on this workshop, we'll be learning all about Quan Yin herself. We'll be learning about the power of compassion. We will be learning about how to alchemize challenges, especially within the heart space. We'll be learning some resources with Quan Yin to help us and empower us in that compassion, in that grace, in that mercy. And we will be closing potentially with a meditation. Truly, she's with all of us, especially as we're going through a collective global spiritual awakening and ascension. It is part of her purpose to work with us collectively, individually and collectively, to help us heal our suffering, to help us have mercy and forgiveness for others, especially as we see so much division and so much separation in the world. She helps us to create that bridge within ourselves that then helps us to create that for others. Before we really dive into her teachings, let's talk a little bit about who Quan Yin is. Like I said, Quan Yin is an ascended master. She is a goddess of compassion. She's a mother of mercy. And she's a guide for our soul, helping us to soften while also maintaining and recognizing and expressing our inner strength. Her energy is one of compassion and forgiveness, grace and mercy. She carries the divine feminine architect, where there is a strength, but also a softness. And that's where a lot of the compassion and the grace comes in. She is truly infinite in her compassion, infinite in her unconditional love, and that is what she teaches. She holds those templates, she holds those codes, and she comes in when we need assistance in holding those codes for ourselves and extending that to others. And that's where she is helping us through our collective awakening and global ascension. She is a bodhisattva, which is a term for one who has attained enlightenment but who remains. So rather than transcending, instead of choosing nirvana and transcending out of her body, she remained as a part of her mission, as a collective source for all of humanity, in service for all of humanity. For a time, Yeshua, also known as Jesus, was Bodhisattva as well, where he attained enlightenment, but he remained to help share his teachings of the kingdom is within, your connection to God's source, and that Christ consciousness, that unity consciousness. Her name means she who hears the sounds or cries of the world. And so anytime that you are crying out in pain or suffering, anytime the world itself cries out in pain or suffering, she is there. I'm also hearing that she helps bridge the old version of ourselves with the new, meaning that she helps with transformation. So as you're going through your spiritual awakening and your spiritual ascension journey, she helps offer us that grace, helps us find that grace within ourselves, that strength within ourselves, in the softness, in the love, in the compassion, in the becoming of someone new. As we are leveling up, as we're evolving, as we're upgrading, whatever word you choose, as we're going through the transition of our own transformation and shifting into new versions of ourselves, as we are, spiritually evolving, she assists us by holding space and showing us where to hold grace and compassion for ourselves, especially as we know this journey can be very, very difficult, very challenging, very trying, especially as we're in the deep of the shadow work, the inner child healing and reparenting, as we might be going through cycles of crises of faith. She is there holding that space for us, holding that compassion, and reminding us how to have that grace for ourselves and patience with others too. It just feels very multifaceted, but she's helping us through that transition, through that transformation. It is a very soft energy. It's very different from Kali. Kali Ma has a fierce warrior-like energy. And like I said, there was a time when both Kali and Quan Yin came in at the same time for me, because both were needed in that instance in what I was experiencing. Kali Ma is a compassionate warrior. And Quan Yin can carry some of that energy as well, especially with the compassion, but it's less fierce, like less warrior. Kali does not I'm hearing the phrase does not suffer fools. And if you understand what that means, it means that she is unafraid to destroy. Kali is the great destroyer, but from the destruction comes the creation. She does not mince words. She does not let you get away with excuses or get away without taking accountability. Kali is very, very fierce. And as such, she can be fearful in some respects. I love Kali. Kali is one of my favorite guides, most beloved guides. Quan Yin as well is the other end of that spectrum. Is a very similar energy to Kali, but without that fierce warrior. However, do not negate her strength is what I'm hearing. Do not negate Quan Yin's strength. Quan Yin is a softer energy, but there is a strength in that softness. So, especially within the divine feminine template and archetype, she reminds us that the strength of unconditional love, the power of unconditional love, the power of compassion, the strength of compassion, she reminds us how strong that is. So, it's a different strength than Kali, but no less powerful. So, when you are feeling unseen, when you're experiencing heartbreak, when you're feeling unworthy, when you're suffering and in pain with any situation, she shows up as a guide to remind you how loved you are. Because again, love is number one of the strongest emotions that we can feel, which is why it can oftentimes feel so scary and vulnerable to feel love and loved. But also it is what makes the world move. It is what makes up the energy of the whole of the universe. Love is everywhere and in everything. Love is God's source, and she reminds us of our connection, divine connection to God's source through love, and the aspects of that love being compassion and mercy, grace and forgiveness. And forgiveness and grace is another tenet of Kuan Yin's teachings. And she teaches us all about forgiveness as liberation. So this is not just forgiveness of the self, but also forgiveness of others. So forgiveness of the self is the absolute deepest healing that we can do. Yes, we can forgive others and learn to forgive others. And sometimes even that's extremely hard. But ultimately, because other people are reflections of ourselves, we have to do that inner work and learn how to forgive ourselves. And that can be even harder because that means that we have to take accountability, right? That means that we have to actually face ourselves in the mirror. What is this person that we need to forgive actually showing us about ourselves and what we need to forgive inside of ourselves? So, this is actually our ascension teachings that we teach here at Susan Dawn Spiritual Connections. It is accountability. It is recognizing yourself as the empowered creator, that you are not powerless, that you are not helpless to the experiences that you are having or the feelings that you are feeling. It is also showing us, again, the reflection and the mirror. So, everything in our experience, including the people, the relationships that we have, is a reflection of us, is a mirror of us. And it doesn't always have to be like a one to one mirror, like, oh, they're angry, so I must be angry. It could be, oh, they're angry, so where am I uncomfortable with anger? Where am I uncomfortable with confrontation? Where you connect with yourself, the more empowered and sovereign you actually become to create your reality in conscious ways. So you're not helpless or powerless to your physical reality and your experiences. It's what you do with it. Forgiveness does not mean bypassing. It does not mean forgetting. It does not mean avoiding. It does not mean saying it didn't happen or that it didn't hurt. True forgiveness is about reclaiming your power. True forgiveness is about severing the energetic ties to the past in order to allow for a new energy to come through, in order to allow for peace to come over punishment. Why? Why? Why is it so important to have compassion and forgiveness and grace and mercy for others? Why? What is it that Kuan Yin is actually trying to teach us? Well, she's guiding us towards transformation. That's what it's all about. Again, she's guiding us towards peace. If you are holding on to a lack of forgiveness or compassion, then you're just creating more resentment within yourself, more pain within yourself. You're just repeating cycles of pain. And she is teaching us the transformation of that pain through love. And again, compassion, grace, mercy, and forgiveness are all aspects of love. So, this is pure alchemy. She is teaching us how to alchemize pain and suffering into love. Quan Yin recognizes and helps us remember that it's our human, messy life that is what makes life meaningful. That's how we access our divine truth, not by bypassing our human life. That's what our ascension is. That's why she's helping to lead the way for our ascension journey. We're not meant to bypass our human life or our human experience. This is a divine truth. You are the divine truth, is what she's saying. You are the divine truth. And so allow life to be messy, but walk with wisdom. Walk in alignment with your soul, is what she's saying. Kuan Yin is always holding you in sacred love, in compassion, in forgiveness, in grace, and mercy for yourself and your own life, and in connection with others and the world around us as a whole, as a collective. And she wants to remind us of that now.